Will you handle the Ukraine?
Yes. How will I handle Ukraine? We will end the war. We will do it without apology. I will do a deal with Vladimir Putin that advances American interests. Let's be honest, to do a good deal, everybody has to get something out of the deal. I've built my entire career, I've built multi-billion-dollar businesses. That's just a principle. You can't get a lasting deal done unless somebody gets something out of the deal. Here's what Putin gets, and I'm very honest about this. We will freeze the current lines of control. Yes, that means he gets some of the Donbass region. We will further commit that NATO will never admit Ukraine to NATO. Those are things that even in most of the Republican Party you're not supposed to say out loud. But I will require something else in return. Putin has to exit his military partnership with China. The China-Russia military alliance is the actual biggest threat that we face militarily. And yet we're pushing Russia further into China's arms by arming Ukraine. This is how we deliver peace in Ukraine while also deterring China from going after Taiwan. Because China's bet is that the U.S. won't want to take on two allied nuclear superpowers at the same time. But if Russia's not in China's camp, Xi Jinping has to think twice. I also, as a side note, favor exporting the Second Amendment to Taiwan, putting a gun in every household, training them how to use it if that's what they want. That's how you keep China at bay. The Second Amendment works, it turns out, against foreign autocrats. But that's the way we actually have to have a visionary foreign policy that advances American interests, rather than arbitrarily fighting a war that really is, I think, just a return payment on a $5 million bribe that was made long before this election. So this is a U.S. president using $200 billion of U.S. taxpayer money to make good on a $5 million personal bribe that was paid by a Burisma executive to his son. I think it's a big part of the story that's gone untold. Absolutely.
I want to talk about free speech. As president, what will you do about free speech when you have the FBI working with big tech companies to hinder stories that will to protect that? Because not only that, people, average day citizens that talk about topics that make a living on social media, they have lost their income. How would you address that?
So the question about censorship, so many things to say there. First of all, I've been very clear as the first person to say it. I will shut down the FBI. The FBI should not exist. I mean, think about it. You could have most of the U.S. Marshals, which are not corrupted in the same way as an institution, can carry out most of the functions. The drug cases are taken care of by the DEA anyway. It's an unnecessary bureaucracy. When you have an unnecessary bureaucracy, it's a formula for corruption. But the censorship problem isn't just limited to the FBI. So what I've said is a few things. Day one executive order for the entire federal government. If you have pressured a private company to do something that the government could not do directly, you have to publish it on pain of criminal penalties. That's the first thing. Call it the state action files. Roll that log over, see what crawls out. Sunlight is a requirement for being a disinfectant. And the second thing I would say is that if you're a tech company and you enjoy Section 230C2 protection, which says you can't be sued under state laws for taking down constitutionally protected content, if you want to enjoy that protection, then you're bound by the same standards as the federal government, including the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Nobody else in either party has offered a clear solution of how to address this backdoor censorship, what I call the woke industrial complex. It is far more powerful than either the private sector or government alone. And so that's a clear vision I've written about in my 3 books. I'm actually going to implement it within the first month in office.
So what do you say when they say that you want to remove the FBI? They say that you want to defund it, right?
I want to abolish the FBI, and I want to give that money back to the people. That doesn't mean that we don't have law enforcement. We put it under the U.S. Marshals. We don't need these redundant alphabet soup of federal administrative police state actors, because that is a formula for corruption, and I reject corruption. Last question.
Do you not think it's going to...
of government, not 4. I'll lay out for you, there's only 4 things that I will tell you when I leave office in January 2033 that we did. One of them is that we have shut down the administrative state. It is unconstitutional. It will not exist in January 2033. I'll tell you, we're no longer dependent on our enemy, China, for our modern way of life. Our economy will be growing at 4+% again, and young Americans will be proud of being citizens of this country. I don't believe in false promises, but when I leave office in January 2033, that much I will tell you we will have gotten done. And that's what I'm in this race to deliver.
What is your view on immigration policy reforms for H-1B holders and other items?
I think a lottery is nonsensical. Why on earth would we be picking names out of a hat randomly? I think that we, on one hand, have to secure the border without apology. Illegal immigration is not immigration, it is breakage of the law. And then we need a merit-based system for people who actually, and merit includes 2 things. One is ability to make contributions to this country. But the second is equally important, more important, civic commitment to the country. So that same civics exam that every high school student has to pass, that every naturalized citizen has to pass, I think we need to bring to the front end before somebody even enters the country or even becomes a visa holder. That separates the real from the fake. And I think you got to know something about a country if you want to be part of that country. You don't come to America to live in America. You come to America to be an American. That's the answer. Thank you, guys.